Hey there, friends and enemies, JoPaWrites here again, and today I want to talk about enhancing the endgame of Borderlands 4, specifically through the world events that I feel are completely underutilized in the game right now and could provide a nice alternative to boss farming, which is the primary endgame. Yes, we also have wildcard missions, but that is less gameplay and does have a lot of dialogue that you can't skip. So having a specific mode that is focused on mobbing and taking down just a bunch of ads, I think would add a different element to the game. But you wouldn't be alone if you didn't even realize these exist. There are 3 of them in the game right now. There's Airship Wreck, Gordello, and then Creep Impact. That's the gameplay you'll see in the background. And ultimately, all 3 of them are somewhat interesting. I do feel like the mob ratio can be turned up, but it can be difficult, especially when you get to higher tiers. And I do think there could be a bit more ads added to the events as well, but that's not the thing that I feel like is holding these back. One, they are not really prominently featured on the map. You can see them when you open the map if you know what to look for, but I think we should get alert whenever these world events are active, so that way you can go tackle one of these, because they'll pop up and then disappear for a while and you have no indication on when they are coming back. So it's really not a great option to farm just because you just don't know when it's going to be available. Not only that, but some of the world events don't even have actual bosses or even mini bosses tied to them. Yes, they have some badass enemies that'll pop up and stuff like that, but I would love to see at the end of rounds or in between these activities somehow you add some mini bosses as well, or some named enemies. You could even reuse them from other activities in order to make this a bit more challenging at the end of the day. And the reason I say that is I do feel like the problem with the builds in Borderlands 4 right now is you really only need builds hyper-focused on destroying bosses, like melting bosses as quickly as possible. And having other activities that allow you to create a diversity of builds, I think, is very, very important. This is why takedowns were so well received in Borderlands 3. You had to not only defeat the enemies along the path, but then defeat the boss as well. You couldn't just have your specific boss melting build the entirety of the run, and you had to mix it up a little bit. Now, some builds would allow you to carry you through the entirety of those takedowns, but I think we need more activities that do provide for a variety of builds. We're going to get invincible bosses in the future, and depending on how those are playing out as far as the boss arena and how they are challenging they are, I do feel like that is going to be another place where you're going to need to focus on a boss melting build above everything. And again, I do feel like these types of activities could be more of a staple in Borderlands 4's endgame, and that would again allow you to not only have the different builds which could be utilized across different activities, but you'll also be able to mix up the content so it doesn't feel as repetitive. Another issue right now is that the world events are pretty rewarding, especially if you can get to the platinum tier, but you also get a lot of cash. You can get a lot of iridium, which is very, very nice. It just feels like not the best farm for legendaries, so I believe the intended loop is to take on the world events, farm for your iridium, farm for your cash, then you are going to the Moxie's big hunt, and you're going to essentially tackle the bosses over and over again, farm for the weapons you have. Once you run out of your currency. If you do, then that's when you'll go back to a world event and farm. But again, because these aren't really alerted on the map or in any other way when they are active, it does feel like there isn't a way to always check without having to go through the map and search for it every single time you want to see if it's available. So I do think those are some changes that could be made, which would provide a lot more reliability and noticeability for the world events. And again, they mentioned that it doesn't look like we're getting takedowns, at least not anytime soon. I think that's a major bummer, because I do feel like that is the perfect type of, not necessarily raid like you would see in Destiny 2, but almost like a dungeon of sorts, even though it's less related to mechanics and more about just strict gameplay. I do feel like that's what Borderlands 4 players are looking for and will be able to have fun with as far as endgame goes. So without that, we need alternative options. And so turning the world events into similar to slaughterhouses, only they are replayable, they are more constantly active. Now, they may be tied to actual in-game events that are happening down the line, and that could be something that brings about some changes as well. Maybe we get some randomized enemies that can pop up during those events, randomized mini bosses or something like that, that it can allow for some extra farming and some variety when these activities get stale as well. But ultimately, I do feel like there is a lack of diversity in the end game with Borderlands 4 right now that is holding it back just a little bit. I do feel like otherwise, though, this is the best game in the franchise. The story is really good. Maybe not quite as good as 2, but it's significantly better than 3. The side quests, I've already made an entire video on this. They are the best in the franchise so far. The open world map flows very seamlessly. Having some of your mini bosses pop up randomly as world bosses across the map is very nice. We have named enemies with dedicated drops. We've got bosses that can farm. You don't need to save quit. I just think that there is some minor criticisms of the end game that can be fixed, hopefully somewhat easily, and allow for a lot more fun and less just simply boss resetting constantly as an end game loop. Now, my question is, have you played any of the world events as of yet? Are you somebody who would like more mobbing activities, more enemies where you have more activities where you have a bunch of enemies at a given time? It feels a little bit overwhelming, but you can test builds to see how versatile they are rather than just like one-shotting a boss. I'd love to hear from you guys. That's one of my favorite things. I do think I will make some build videos in the near future once I've kind of mastered these events, in order to basically showcase some alternatives to the again, the boss melting builds we have in the game right now. Anyway, let me know what you guys think. Have you played the world events? Have you even noticed where they are? Let me know in the comments below. Like the video as always, comment, subscribe. Have a good one, and I'll catch you all later.